So welcome to another edition of Globespan 24x7. Tonight, Wednesday, November 24th. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving in America. So let me begin by wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We are discussing tonight some current issues. More specifically, we are talking about the recent spate of fires in Guyana. And we will be discussing with some panelists and then requesting their proposed solutions for these fires, the causes and solutions. And then we'll also be discussing the upcoming elections for PNC executive members as well as leadership, which will be held on December 6th. So thank you very much again for joining us. With us tonight, there are three very distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Mike Singh, out of Florida. Mr. White Singh is a global entrepreneur, a global tech specialist. He's also working as an advisor consultant for InterGuide of the FBI of the United States of America. He's very knowledgeable on varied issues. He has lived abroad for many, many years, including the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Mike. And we have Mr. Leyland Roopnarine, no stranger on this program. He is a former political activist in Guyana. He has lived a very long time in New York. Mr. Leyland Roopnarine is a real estate broker and agent. He owns his own brokerage company, Imperial Homes. He has built dozens of homes in the United States, and he has written extensively on flooding as well as on fire. More recently, on the fires, not at Eve Larry, but in the police central station in Georgetown, Brickdam Police Station.
Brickdam, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Leyland, for joining us. Leyland also would have had some experience in those prisons. He was beaten very, very badly when he was a political activist in Guyana prior to 1992. And also joining us tonight is Dr. Josh Kanhai, who was a candidate in the last general elections 2020. He had quite an experience, and he had related this to us some programs ago. I believe now he's related and affiliated with another political party, the United Republican Party, URP. So thank you also, Dr. Josh Kanhai, for joining us. So let's begin right away, gentlemen. Let's begin with fire. So Leyland, since you have written quite a lot on this topic, causes for fires in Guyana, please.
Well, the recent fires in Guyana is deja vu. It's been happening for many, many years. The causes of these fires are well known, but I offer some solutions here tonight. Most of these fires are caused by human doing. Recently, the Eve Larry fire, preceded by the Brickdam fire, and a couple years ago under the coalition government, you had 14 deaths in the Georgetown prisons, plus another fire in the Georgetown prisons. So these fires have taken place in areas of high security and high policing. So if we are to ask ourselves if these people are going to enforce law and protect our well-being in Guyana, well, we have to ask ourselves that question over and over. Are they capable? Most of these fires are caused by faulty electrical wiring, which later on in the program I'll get into. It's also caused by poor appliances and poor parts imported mainly from China. The Bureau of Standards in Guyana has done a lousy job in allowing these parts to be installed in people's homes. Secondly, the whole culture of Guyana needs to change, because many times you find people just attaching appliances to the same outlet, and this in turn will cause more power to be consumed. And as power is consumed and you get an overloaded circuit, what actually happens in these circuits is that these wires, which are actually vinyl coated copper that transmit current, these wires overheat and they start melting. So when you use an appliance a few times and you say all is well and good, you don't know that behind these walls there is something very deadly taking place. These wires are melting and constantly melting. After many usage of these appliances, these wires completely melt and then they bridge. When they bridge, that's when you're not even at home, and then the fire starts. There are many other aspects of fire. For instance, the fire service is a very poor entity. The location in Starbrook Market neighborhood is a horrible situation. That has been there prior to independence, and no government, present or past, has seen us fit to relocate this fire station to a more centralized location. I wrote about 2 weeks ago that this fire station should be located at Durban Park instead of that stupid monstrosity that President Granger built to celebrate his inauguration. That thing should be borne down and built a modern fire station there. But as we go on, there are many other aspects that I would like to tell you about.
Can I just, if you could stick a little to this defective equipment, defective wires, because that seems to be central. We don't really know how these fires were caused. In fact, there could also be another fact. It could be sabotage of the buildings themselves. Somebody could have poured kerosene or just lit matches, and in fact, that seemed to have been one of the factors behind the breakdown police, where someone lit a firelighter or a match. I don't know. Leyland, can you clarify that?
Well, not only the breakdown police station that burned down a month ago, but prior to that, when Mr. Ramjatan was Home Affairs Minister, obviously he is in charge of the prison system too, right? And the fire department. Those fires at the jail were deliberately set, together with the breakdown police fire. The most salient point here is that the breakdown fire was started by a prisoner who was given a lighter to light a cigarette. Where are we going with these people who are supposed to enforce law and they themselves break the law by doing such idiotic actions?
And could you and then could you also talk about the wires and the equipment? I mean, you're saying in Guyana they don't use the right type of wire for electrical circuits?
Yes. Well, let's put it this way. If you want to lift a 10-pound brick, you will not use a thread. You will use a wire, a strong rope. So when current passes through these wires are not built to take off such high power. For instance, a regular house will have 4 major appliances: a fridge, an air conditioner, a microwave, and an electric iron. If all 4 works simultaneously, you will have over 4,000 watts of power being consumed. Most of the time, these circuits are not geared to consume such high amount of power. So what happens is that you overload the circuit and the wires begin to burn. As you say, and then the fuse don't even trip because they don't have the right proper fuse. What they need is this 100 amp distribution kickback system. What I have written about is you need something called a GFCI, a ground fault circuit interrupter. That's a breaker that protects an entire circuit. And for viewers here, let me show you what is a GFCI. This is what trips, right? This is what trips. And when it trips, you reset it like this, right? So it trips when it's overloaded. It trips when there is moisture in it and the wires are bridged. And when this trips, the entire circuit shuts down, which is a safety precaution. It's like a valve. You shut off the valve and no more water flows. So this is something that we need to look at.
I don't see that. I don't see that in Guyana. When I visit people's homes and offices.
Guyana is supposed to be the next Dubai, but the only thing similar to Dubai is that Dubai has 250,000 people and 2.5 million imported workers. Dubai imports everything: tomatoes, lettuce, fish and shrimp, everything Dubai imports. We see that right now in Guyana. Guyana is importing water of all things. The land of many waters is importing water, and you don't even have water in the fire hydrants to out a fire. About 2 weeks ago, there was a fire, and there was a video on Facebook with a fireman handling a hose, and the water was pointing upwards. He couldn't aim the hose into the fire. That's how clumsy we are doing protecting people's property. And again, very awkward, clumsy, untrained, and in the final analysis, not only millions of dollars are lost, but people's lives are lost, and people have to start their life all over again when you lose your business.
Okay, Mike Singh.
Yes, good night
Good night, sir.
to you and to the brave viewers of Globespan.
So tell us about causes of fire if you have anything to contribute on that particular.
Well, I'm not really in the conflagration business, but I'll talk about Sierra Leone. About 2 weeks ago, a tanker transporting fuel in Freetown, Sierra Leone, crashed, and the fuel started leaking out. And some of the residents in Freetown decided they're gonna cash in and load up some free fuel. And amidst this suicide mission they undertook, the entire tanker blew up and killed 99 persons. So that kind of like, wow, this is the desperation of people in West Africa. It could be pure ignorance. Ignorance is bliss. That I saw and I said, my gosh, but in Guyana, fire, there is smoke each and every corner of this country, except, with the rain. But when I'm in Guyana, I drive around. I don't know, what are people burning? There's so many bonfires. You might think, this is a signal that the troops are coming and the Indians and they should get together, meaning the American Indians like the Apaches, they're sending a smoke signal, Costa's on the move. But Guyana is a place, people burn fire every day, everywhere. And I've seen them burning fires adjacent to utility poles, driving along the west bank of Demerara. So, that's a real rural scenario. One of these days you're going to hear or see they burnt down a utility pole. It wouldn't surprise me. What Leyland said, I didn't know that these things are so prevalent. And I know that device, I've seen it in Home Depot and what have you. Recently, I sent down, the shut-off valve, a ball one, I picked up at Home Depot. And when my cousin got it in Guyana, he said this is superior than the Chinese junk we get here at Gafour's or at National Hardware or any of the stores. I'm not picking on these companies, but I don't know. Leyland, you might want to talk about the UL standards and the various standards we have in the US that governs utility and things like electrical appliances. There must be some, I've seen it, UL and what have you, but all I can say, what Leyland outlined there, I mean, when you go to Guyana, you'll have to sleep with maybe a portable fire extinguisher under your bed and a flame retardant suit to exit your house.
So, Dr. Josh Kanhai would have traveled quite a bit and had quite a bit of experience to talk about with these bonfires all over the place. People do burn a lot of paddy stub and even paddy itself, wind paddy, on the highways and the roads, and they create quite a danger to vehicular traffic. In fact, there have been many accidents as a result of these bonfires that you talked about. Josh, Doc, any contribution to causes of fire in Guyana before we return back to Leyland? We seem to have lost Dr. Kanhai.
Josh seems to be driving and not being on the call. That's dangerous road practice.
It is. I don't know if he's driving or someone driving him.
Oh, yes. Can't hear.
Yeah, okay. So let's go to Leyland and Leyland. So that device, can you talk a little more about that particular device, because it's so important.
Sure.
That it really serve. I mean, it's a kind of a circuit breaker internal into the circuit.
But I think that's only for recess spaces, right, Leyland, or can you get it for non-recess?
No, you can put it anywhere you like. if there's an overloaded circuit, the breaker trips and all current stops flowing.
So it
So it
doesn't
will
need to be
automatically shut off.
recessed. You can put it anywhere.
Well, in the United States, we recess it so the wall looks very flat. But in
Yeah,
Ghana,
but
you have to know what kind of electrical codes you have. Because building a house in New York City, you go through about 10 inspections. Before you close the wall up, they will inspect plumbing, electrical, and the construction material you use. So you can't hide anything. I don't know if Guyana has such a system because they only inspect the house when it's finished. So nobody knows what's behind the walls. Nobody knows what is the tensile strength of the steel or the compressibility of the concrete or the limestone content that you use. So Guyana's building system is in a horrible situation.
it's archaic.
Coming back to fires, most of the buildings that house ministries in Guyana were built pre-independence. They're dry firewood. One little spark and you have a conflagration, and in fairness, that's very, very difficult to out. Secondly, our firefighters are only know about using water to out fire. They are far better chemicals that you can use to out fire. But the last call anyone should make in the case of a fire is for a fire department with a fire truck to come there, because there are many things you can do when there is a fire that will actually prevent such fires. Because you need an alarm system, or you need a shut-off system, and most of all, you need a complete building code in which people can build properly and have all these circuit breakers interrupted. They are the acronym RACE, RACE. In case of a fire, you force to do is to rescue anyone in immediate danger. That's R. A, alarm call to the fire department. C, confine the fire and smoke by closing all doors and windows. The reason why you close the door and windows is because you prevent the smoke from spreading and you prevent oxygen from coming in. Fire cannot burn without oxygen. E, evacuate all persons. And finally, extinguish all small fires with portable fire extinguishers. The breakdown fire at the police station didn't seem to have any fire hose, any localized smoke detector, any fire extinguisher. That is a reflection of the type of government we have, because when you look at the Home Affairs ministers who are in charge of the fire department, right? You have had a set of people who have become ministers in not only Home Affairs but in many governments, in many portfolios. In Home Affairs, you had the first one after Dr. Jagan won the election was Firoz Mohammed. Then this was Gadraj. Then Gil Teixeira. Then Kemraj Ramchatan, and now you have Mr. Ben. Well, I think it's time that Mr. Ben straightens out his act. Mr. Ben needs to get things straight with his department, because these people who are ministers of government, and I happen to know a lot of them personally, they're not qualified to be a minister. They have never had a business to run. They have never had more than 5 to 10 persons to manage. And they get these jobs by picketing, organizing strikes, and selling Unation and Mirror. That's how these people get these jobs. They're not fit to be ministers. I have personally given about 5 ministers, present and past government, a comprehensive breakdown on building codes, building structures, building material quality, construction methods. I don't know. I have offered my services to the government free. The word is FRE, free here. Today we are witnessing a whole proliferation of fires in that country, coupled with very, very poor workmanship. In other words, as our foreparents used to say, these people, they're corhi. They're clumsy. These people who we have as ministers should understand that the people they put to supervise and to pass jobs, they are all looking for kickbacks. Instead of having a circuit breaker kickback system, they have a monetary kickback system.
Like that.
But Leland, in all fairness to ministers, I mean, they can't overlook every single. They cannot micromanage their offices and the departments and agencies and all of the buildings that fall within their jurisdiction. They assign people to do the job, and those people are supposed to get the job done. For example, as you said, there was no fire extinguisher at Brickdown Police Station to extinguish a fire when they should have been.
Well, the fire department should not wait for a fire to take place before you launch an investigation as to the cause of the fire. The first thing you should do is try to prevent the fire. So this fire so not only the Brickdown Police Station, but schools and hospitals, nursing homes, places where people congregate, right? Churches should have, especially those places, should have mechanisms in place and procedures in place. When last you heard of a fire drill in that country? Does you have procedures in place to prevent fires, or if in case of a fire to curtail the fire? Look at the fire service location at Starbrook. 15 minutes it took them to get to Brickdown, which I can walk in 2 minutes. I mean run in 2 minutes without steroids.
Yeah, so you're saying the fire department is not efficient, but aside from speed and efficiency, the fire department trucks, when they're without water, I don't understand why is it that the trucks don't have water. I don't know, and normally I think they would have a canter or something that carries water with that container, whatever it's called, to make water available in order to pump the water from that into the fire, rather than wait and find some canal somewhere in order to acquire water. So if there's no canal there, too bad, there is no water.
You're doomed.
Well,
we have fire hydrants as monuments in Guyana. They function just like coffee. They do nothing. They just stand there. You turn on a fire hydrant, there's no water coming out. What we have to look at is the people who... This camera. You see me?
Hey Doc, you're on? Hello? Let's go with Mike Singh in the meanwhile, because we are not seeing them.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike, you want to critique, comment what's been said so far?
About the whole thing with the fire?
Yes.
Well, it's every night in Guyana is Guy Fawkes night.
Explain.
Guy Fawkes night commemorates the gunpowder plot to blow up the British Houses of Parliament by Francis Bacon. And it's commemorated just after Halloween in the UK and Great Britain, where they get all the leaves from the autumn or the fall. They put them into big heaps and they light bonfires and they roast marshmallows and pistachios and those kinds of things. Meaning in Guyana, there's never a dark night. There's always someone burning rubbish or some type of garbage, brightening up the horizons. It rivals the place known as...
But
it's
Mike,
a dangerous place because people are allowed to burn garbage in public areas uncontrollably on the side of roads. It's not good for the environment. They're burning tires. I mean, if you just drive around Guyana, it's a carcinogenic wasteland with people just burning these things.
But Mike, in all fairness, they can't afford to do anything else. I mean,
oh yes, they can. They can move up the chain in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle. They could take all of that plastic that clogs the waterways and start recycling them. Don't go to COP26 and give a big narrative about the green economy and all this poppycock and balderdash. Go there and say, look, we're the lungs of the world. We have lots of rainforests, but you know what? We suck when we come to recycling in Guyana. Why do you think you have so much flood, so many clogged canals? Because folks are either not educated or they just don't care. It's a plastic wasteland. There's so much plastic waste in canals, in gutters, and on the street. They need to start charging people for garbage disposal in Guyana by weighing the amount of garbage you generate, like in Europe. There's no comprehensive or effective national recycling plan in Guyana, and why? In 2021, they still don't have a national recycling plan. I've read of so many presentations, people meeting with the government to offer solutions for taking garbage to generate electricity, but no national recycling plan. And you go to COP26 and you're spewing all this poppycock and balderdash, and you don't have it at home. Why rush to the world stage and talk about there and then when you can't handle here and now? So they really need to get a national recycling plan, because otherwise, you're just going to be digging one garbage dump to the other. Solid waste management in Guyana, it's a Herculean task. It's a nightmare, and the government has to take the leadership role. Vice President Jagdeo is an avowed environmentalist. He's received the Champion of the Earth award, but I don't know who's in charge of solid waste management in Guyana. Is there even such a department, a post? They need, the soft drink, everywhere you turn, there is plastic. And it's not good for the environment.
Do you have a proposal or report that you could share with the government on?
No, I'm not in the plastic. I've been a member of Greenpeace since I was a teenager. In fact, I was part of the team with the late Joshua, is it Ramsamy, the avowed environmentalist, and with Parvati Prasad Edwards in 1986, when we led a huge protest against my late friend Desmond Hoyt, against bringing carcinogenic waste to Linden. And he listened. And to this day, people in Greenpeace remember this. But we've got to really get our hands about how we manage waste. And it's not just plastic. You've got e-waste. A lot of monitors, computer parts are dumped in the garbage, microwave. These things have very lethal parts, and if it leaks into the water table, you're going to have a spike in cancer. A lot of the parts in these things are carcinogenic at the end. So I'm appealing to President Irfan Ali. I'm appealing to Vice President Jagdeo. I'm appealing to Minister Vindi Prasad, who's responsible for human and health. Please do something to address this whole solid waste issue. And forget about the city of Georgetown. The mayor and city council there, they're useless. That pandit needs to resign.
So, all right, so we'll come right back with the break. Come right back, and then we'll resume discussion on fires as well as solid waste removal.
Yeah.
The curry roti box is now available. Select your meal. Choose from chicken, duck, goat, or lamb curries, plus pepper pot, chicken tikka masala, lamb vindaloo, and roti. Your choice and your selection. Make up your own curry roti box. We will ship directly to your home or job. Unbox your favorite curries, rotis, pastries, plus order your favorite West Indian sodas and much, much more on allfromonesupplier.com. Treat yourself or send a curry roti box as a gift. Curry roti box is available with free shipping to all U.S. states and free delivery in New York. Order now your favorite curries, your fish, meats, pastries, sodas, and much more. Get all your West Indian and Indian food, plus your West Indian groceries from allfromonesupplier.com. It's free delivery and free shipping. Log on to allfromonesupplier.com and place your order today or call 718-551-3292. Again, that's allfromonesupplier.com. This is a Save the Date announcement. Couples, family, relatives, and friends, save the date. We are taking our culture, music, and food on our vacation in 2022. Enjoy a vacation plus special events and entertainments. Here are the choices. Guyana excursion May 4th to May 11th. Indian talent competition July 14th to July 18th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Christian Community Week July 21st to July 25th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Curry Duck Curry competition July 28th to August 1st in Cancun, Mexico. Caribbean Week August 4th to August 8th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Battle for the DJ Crown Soca, Indo, and Chutney Style August 11th to August 15th. Enjoy 5 days plus 4 nights all-inclusive vacation with your own cultural music, food, and entertainment. Meet and greet sessions with the performers and competition prizes. First place prize $2,000, second place $1,500, and third place $1,000. This is a Save the Date announcement by TravelSpan. More information will become available in December. TravelSpan, always on the cutting edge and serving you for over 27 years. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437.
Okay, so welcome back, viewers, listeners. You are tuned in to Globespan 24x7, owned and operated by Mr. Noor Singh. Our technical operator tonight is Mr. Devin Bissoon. And joining us tonight for discussion on contemporary issues, fires in Guyana, causes and solutions. Joining us tonight are Mr. Leyland Roopnarine, a person with a lot of experience writing about flooding and fires in Guyana, and has built dozens of homes in the United States. Mr. Leyland Roopnarine was a political activist in Guyana before leaving those green shores for America, greener pastures. And also joining us tonight is Mr. Mike Singh, who has traveled internationally, lived in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, has also traveled in India, and now lives in Florida. Mike Singh has tremendous experience. He also works as a consultant advisor to the FBI. And we have Dr. Josh Kanhai, who we are trying to reconnect with. For whatever reason, we seem to have lost him. So we were discussing causes and solutions of fires. And then we were also talking about solid waste disposal. Before we get back to solid waste disposal, Leland, what would you propose as some solutions for fire? You were talking about equipment. You want to tell us a little about equipment being brought for construction in the United States? Most of it, not most, but a lot of it come from China. How is it that they're accepted here and you have not condemned those equipment that are being used in the U.S.?
Well, sir, and to our viewers here, almost everything in this world is made in China. China exports everything that we actually use. And the difference between the Chinese stuff that enters the United States and enters Guyana is quality control. The customs over here and the Bureau of Standards, they will take random samples, and if they find the equipment is faulty and substandard, the entire shipment has to go back to China, or they will destroy it. I don't know how Guyanese can allow such substandard goods to flood the market because they're cheap. You may get cheap Chinese appliances and fittings, but look at the end result. It's a huge cost to buildings and a loss of lives. Secondly, many people, when they have a home that's a one family, they built it for them, husband, wife, and a couple children. They find that it's hard to pay the mortgage, so they extend the home to accommodate another family, but there is no improvement in the electrical distribution system. So the same circuit that has appliances for one family, like one stove, one fridge, one microwave, will have twice that amount. That's an overloaded circuit right there. And Guyanese must be
and that could be a cause for fire.
That's the point I'm making. That's the cause of electrical fire, overloaded circuits. As I indicated earlier, these circuits can be protected if you have something called a ground floor circuit interrupter, right? Ground fault circuit interrupter, which is a kickback system. The breaker here will kick back when there's an overload, as you can see, and the entire circuit shuts down. There's no current flows. Secondly, apart from the illegal extension to accommodate more people and the same electrical distribution system to accommodate more appliances, you also have very poor quality control in terms of the building system in that country, where very shoddy work is being done. Cheap electrical wiring is being done, not only in terms of the quality of work, but the quality of materials that are used. And the inspectors that are supposed to be inspecting these properties, they're not up to standard to me. And many times people have told me they had to pay $50,000 to an inspector to get a house passed. This is something that people have to live with in that country. The end result is that your $50,000 can cost your $50 million house to be destroyed. Above
Plus
all,
loss of lives.
yeah, fire hydrants, which are generally taken for granted by many, should be seen as a source of water supply to out fires for the safety of all Guyanese. And we must understand that these fire hydrants must have water. That's what you call them hydrants for, water. It so happens that the present president was the former Minister of Housing and Water. Yet Guyana finds itself where if you need black tanks in your house to get water. The cost of a trestle with black tank and plumbing with pump is $500,000 for 2 black tanks. It's an astronomical sum when you calculate that by the tens of thousands of houses that have these systems. It seems as if you want milk, you have to have your own cow.
But Leyland, but you know, the ministers are always saying, them people hard of hearing, man, then I listen, then I hear. What does government do?
Well, listen, let me just indicate something to you. Democracy cannot be obtained by being enshrined in a constitution and a set of laws. It must evolve as a culture of the people. Nelson Mandela, great man. That's what Guyana needs. You need a culture to evolve so people will take responsibility for their actions, and you need an enforcement agency to make sure that buildings are properly constructed and electrical systems are safe and not haphazardly connected. Many people tend to connect wires themselves. Many people do that, and what they do, the grounding of the wire, these three-pronged systems that you have, right? The three-pronged plug, they plug it into the 2-hole outlets. So they break off the main issue. The main issue is that they break off the ground. So when you have an overload, there's no way for the current to escape. So it goes into the system rather than goes to the earth where it is harmlessly dissipated. So Guyana has a long way to go, and if you have ministers who are in housing and overseeing construction, they have to get their act together, because if you cannot implement system and enforce these systems and formulate new building codes, Guyana is on its way to disaster. In the final analysis, the Housing Authority should institute rigid policies which must be mandated by law to prevent such tragedies. All buildings must carry insurance and have sprinkler systems. The sprinkler system it's something that you don't need a university degree to understand. It's just you connect a hose to an outlet in the street, and that water goes through the whole building and sprinkles. That's how you get the name sprinkler.
Leland, I want to come back to that because that doesn't seem practical to me. Let's talk to Dr. Josh Kanhai first, because we haven't heard from him as yet. Josh, what's your input in causes of fire solutions?
Hi, good night. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
now?
we are hearing you now. Yes.
All right, great. Well, I've been hearing a bit about the fires and the causes from both Mr. Leyland and Mr. Mike Singh, and I'm not sure how long these two guys have actually been in Guyana, But as far as I'm concerned, for the regulations as for the wirings, which is being touched on by Mr. Leyland, we're actually having some really good brands and really good English-made wires that are coming to the country. So let's set aside all of that. Wiring can be a factor in the older buildings. However, the wiring that we are getting, they are standard. And my dad is an electrical engineer, so I'm privy to a lot of electrical issues as well. He did touch on a very important point with the breakers. A lot of persons do not understand how it works, and I think he made a very good presentation with how the breakers work and how points work. And each point is connected in a circuit to a breaker. Therefore, if that point is overloaded with multiple appliances, then it can overload and get heat, and then heat can cause the fire. But so far, I believe the fire for the brick dam station, that was arson, and that was put in the hands of the prisoners. However, the one at Ivleri, that was not identified as yet. One issue that I'm not sure if he would have touched on as yet is the structure itself. They're wooden structures. They're very old. I'm not sure how long these structures would have been rehabilitated with some newer, upgraded piece of wood and ceiling, etc. But that can be a cause as well, because when one part catches a fire, then the entire structure would obviously go. And obviously, these structures contain a lot of paper materials, and Guyana has been paper-based since I was born, and it's still paper-based, and that is something that we have to touch on, and that is something that we must get rid of. These papers, they are going to catch fire. They are highly flammable materials, and we've seen that brick dam, I would say the reason for the spread, and we did see a bunch of papers being hauled out by workers there. I would say the amount of the reason for that very fast spread was because of that highly flammable paper that's in these buildings, as well as the DPP's office. That entire office, I would say, hands down, without even seeing it, it's filled with papers. So that is something we have to get rid of. Other solutions to these problems, of course, would be looking at much more improved building materials. As we're seeing concrete, we're seeing hempcrete is actually very much fireproof and heat resistant, and another few materials that are coming up in the research industry that are fireproof or fire resistant, I might say. But so far, these fires as well, they are I'm looking at it from a political point of view as well, whereby this is a deja vu moment, as Mr. Leyland would have put, and we would have seen fires in the past as well, as when there's change in administration. And these fires here, there is speculation. I'm not accusing. These are speculations that have claims laid to them, because persons from the United States who are from the opposition, and even persons right here in Guyana who are from opposition, they've been calling on their supporters to do whatever it takes, as they say, do whatever it takes to get the administration in power out at the moment, right? So we must not lay that aside. But hopefully it's not that. Hopefully the persons in the opposition can see that Guyana is not just for them, it's for everyone. And hopefully we can find some solutions very quickly when it comes to having these office buildings follow codes, as Mr. Leyland is highlighting out all the time. Follow the codes, have regular checks on these buildings themselves, especially the wooden buildings. Maybe we can set in some policies whereby the civil department comes and actually checks on all. They do checks on all of the public buildings every 2 or every 5 years, whereby they check the wiring, they check the breakers, they check the fuse, etc. So these are some of the things that we can do to prevent these fires from going in the future and going forward.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I think in the United States, undeveloped countries, you do have the fire departments come and inspect buildings routinely and regularly. When I was working as a teacher in our schools, they were there almost every year, checking the buildings. And I believe Leyland was suggesting something like that. Anything else you want to contribute before we shift over? Besides that, any other solutions you have? Proposed solutions to prevent fires?
More so, the fire department itself, they need to be on their toes all the time. That was highlighted by both gents. I believe Ms. Leland more so. They need to be on their toes, and that station being in the center of town, it is a prime location. It is very much a prime location. It can cover any one of the public buildings within 2 minutes or within a minute, and some
Mm-hmm.
even minutes to the most. However, that
Mm-hmm.
area is very, very congested. I believe instead of moving the station, they can more so move the congestion around that area, and I believe that is something the town clerks they were looking at. However, it's just talk, it's just talk, it's just talk, and there's no actions and to put that Stabrook Square in order, right? Even and when you're going to the Ministry of Human Services offices at the back there as well, you can take sometimes 5 minutes or even more to have a vendor in the middle of the road moving a cart or having the busmen there trying to get passengers, etc. So that area is very congested. Maybe a short-term solution can be to get that area as organized as possible, and
Mm-hmm.
then in the long term we can look at a much central location. I heard the Durban Park was earmarked for
Yeah.
that by Mr. Leland. He
Yes.
did say that.
Yes.
Um, I think
Yeah.
that that part there, I don't
We
think
should
that would
actually
be.
burn down that stadium.
I don't think that's an ideal location. That has some routes there for sports and for gymnasium, etc. But definitely somewhere central will be important. But as a short-term solution, I would consider just organizing that piece of property there, the Stabrook Square. And of course, I think the fire chief would have gotten his share from His Excellency about how he wants him to operate, and I think he's been picking up a bit. However, he's doing so a bit too slow, but hopefully he's getting there. And also the other firefighters, I want to encourage them that when they're into this job, it's not for just you, especially when it's buildings and it's lives and the public properties in matter. It's not just us. It's not just that department or that person that's working in that building. It's for the entire Guyana, because now we have to find monies, which is already being sucked out by COVID. We have to now find monies to put up some new structures for these offices. And I know we're not going to go back to the wooden structures. We'll have to do steel structures, and we'll have to spend money. We'll have to spend money, which is going to cause some really bad economic difficulties, and some raises are not going to be there in certain departments. But that's what happens. That's what these guys have to look at the bigger picture when they're fighting the fires.
Speaking of fires, the expression that many people have talked about in conversation I've had is more fire, slow fire, a rapid fire, jam
Wait,
fire.
that
Do you think these fires are related to any of those expressions?
well, the slow fire, more fire. That was the first one you said there, and I believe that's what I was touching on a bit earlier on the political side of things. A very prominent figure would have been out protesting on video and telling the people to do whatever it takes to get the administration out. Why are you gonna tell people to bring about harm? Do whatever it takes. More than likely, they're gonna be violent, etc. Right? And slow fire, more fire has been a very prominent um, bunch of a statement hurled by the opposition leaders. So let us cross our fingers that it's not political, and let us hope that these issues are more so ones whereby persons are there's a poor electrical stability in buildings, etc.
Hmm.
Well, as I indicated earlier, the four major fires have taken place in areas of highly concentrated security: the DPP office, the Breakdown police station, and the two jails. I mean, the two fires at the jail at Camp Street. So, how can you logically explain fires that are taking place in areas of high security? There is complicity here, and there is arson speculated, as Josh said, and I agree with him. Right? There is I don't know how to use this word, but there is this psyche of Guyanese people that if these ministers are getting rich and banking their money overseas, I will show them what I will do. And this fire is a form of retaliation against authority. So that's
Let's
a food
hope.
for
Let
thought.
let's hope
It's not
that's
smoke.
not the case. Yeah. Because it wouldn't come none good for the country if people were to go that way. So anything else about fires before we move on to another topic?
Well, first of all, when you install electrical wires, they should be placed in metal conduit pipes. So
Yeah.
even if the wire melts and burns, it will not affect the wood it runs on because they're in a metal pipe. We have that system here in the United States. Secondly, a lot of firemen are not really firemen, although they have been entitled to that title of firemen. Firemen have second jobs. A lot of them leave their jobs to do taxi work. They have
Well,
second jobs, so they're not on call at the fire station to respond to any fire. That's something that I don't know if Mr. Edu, the fire chief, is aware of. Above all else, as Josh said, if Guyanese are not very serious about doing the um, the right things in terms of installing the right equipment and installing them properly with right wiring circuits and right building codes, Guyana will have more fires. There will be a
But
lot more
Leland,
fires in that country.
as I had commented before, a lot of people can't afford. Poor people can't afford the kind of requirements that you are suggesting, advising, mandating, and to have insurance and so forth. Look, I lived in Guyana for 16, 17 years. We can afford insurance in our homes.
Well, I'm talking about commercial buildings
Hmm.
because first of all, if you're getting a mortgage, which which requires you to have an insurance policy for your home. So
Hmm.
that begs the question: why should we need insurance? You need insurance when you buy a car and you take a loan out to pay for the car or any other motor vehicle. What I'm trying to say is that it's not expensive if you do correct installation methods, use right appliances and right systems, and above all else, use care when you are in your house. Do not
But
leave
shouldn't
things
May,
on.
may I jump in a bit?
yeah, shouldn't government have a responsibility to make sure that the kind of wires and equipment that are being sold
mhm.
are an excellent standard, and defective equipment should not be allowed into the country?
Absolutely, but I mean, Josh can answer that.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I cut you off, Josh. Go ahead.
yeah, definitely. We have the Bureau of Standards at the moment. They're doing I would say quite a good job coming down to the past half of seeing a lot of stuff being recalled on the market. Not so much the electrical appliances, but I know when we're buying electrical appliances over here, that's gonna bring me to a point I want to make. When we buy electrical appliances over here, they're really UK standard. A lot of contractors prefer the UK or the English wire, which is specifically sold at certain stores. And trust me, when we look at the fires, for the entire year, we've had about let me say about 100 or 150. I'm just quoting a figure off my head from what I've seen in the news. Private fires, which is homes and homes being consumed by fires with private citizens. We've not seen so much public buildings until this year end, right? So that shows you that the private homes, they are actually following codes and they're taking electricity serious. But the public buildings, they need to look into these issues more, given that that is the issue for the fires, right? And it's definitely a part whereby the commercial properties and the private properties, once you're having insurance, the policy is that you have to have building codes in check, and you have to have a part of those building codes are your electricity codes or your security codes, etc., for your building, right? And the government offices, they are not insured per se, so they do not have any codes being followed. And I believe maybe as I mentioned earlier, the civic works department, they can probably put up a department to ensure that each public building is checked every year or every half year, so that they're kept in check with the building codes for those buildings, right?
I just want to point out that if products are sold from the U.S. from American manufacturers and they're used in Guyana and they have led to serious issues or problems, fires or deaths, those companies are liable. They're held liable. I don't know about Chinese companies, but American companies are held liable even if the product is used overseas. In the United States, companies have been hauled before the courts and fined tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And so Guyanese homeowners and construction workers, as well as contractors, should know that they should try to use Western products, Western equipment, because these companies can be hauled before courts in their countries. They don't have to be hauled before courts in Guyana. They can be hauled before courts in the United States and in Britain and wherever else, and be held accountable for any defects in their products.
Oh, that's good. That's some really good information there. Because I've not heard about a case from Guyana or anywhere else going to the U.S. back because of faulty electrical appliance or any other.
You could bring if
That's good.
lives are lost and yeah. And no one has tested these laws before, but you could do that. All right, any other information before we move on? So the other topic, Leyland?
Yeah. Well, Vishnu, to wrap up this issue on fires, like I indicated to you, no one can prevent arson, but you can prevent fires from many other sources.
Correct.
And as I just said, the enforcement arm of the buildings department has to come alive. They seem to be sleepwalking. And all buildings,
like
whether it's
most of the
government
country.
buildings or private buildings, as long as it's a building that we term commercial usage over here. Commercial usage are buildings like schools, churches, hospitals, supermarkets, where a lot of people will gather. Those buildings need a rigid construction codes with the GFI, like I said to you, the wiring in the conduit metal pipes, and rigid inspection, maybe once every 6 months, to ensure that there is well-placed sand buckets, fire extinguishers, and hoses that we normally find in glass containers, so you can easily break the glass with your fist or with a little axe around there, and that connects directly to a water system in the building. But sad to say, Guyana, the land of many waters, you don't even have fire hydrants that supply water. We reach a very important Poland spring water from the United States to drink, and water from Suriname to drink. That country is in a real mess. It's a shame and a disgrace that we imported water. And now we import shrimps and fish from Florida.
Leyland, you're exaggerating now, man. Come on.
The Guyanese as well, Mr. Leyland. Let's not try to aggravate or agitate the Guyanese brothers and sisters here.
Yeah.
I know I understand you're importing water and stuff, but at the end of the day, the big market, everyone wants to make a quick buck. So these are some of the things we can't stop, huh?
That's correct. I agree with Josh on that one. So listen, I just want to touch on the other topic I had planned to discuss tonight. And, December 6th is the internal executive elections for the PNC. So I'm just wondering if any one of you have any thoughts, ideas, comments about the PNC elections. We have, I think, 3 candidates so far for leadership and a number of candidates for chairman and other positions. So for leadership, we have Aubrey Norton, Joe Harmon, and Van West Charles. So any pick? What do you think is going to happen there in those elections? Josh, you live in Guyana. What do you think will happen?
Yeah, well, it's getting quite spicy coming down to the end, and we saw out of a few, I think it was 8, it came down to 3, and those 3 are quite remarkable. Well, not remarkable, but they're quite known faces to the PNC population, and they're deemed stalwarts, right? And all of them are. It's going to be a tough battle, I say, but coming out on top, I'm looking more towards Mr. Norton or Dr. Van West Charles, because I don't see a future for Mr. Harmon in such a position, or even calling any sort of shots. He has dealt his hands. He has faced the consequences of those hands being dealt, and I feel he has no place. He should step back and let the younger folks go ahead. However, both Mr. Charles and Mr. Aubrey Norton, they both have their, well, more so Dr. Van West Charles, he has his deal with the courts and all the other issues he would have dealt with in the past. So I believe he would have some baggages coming into that position. As for Mr. Norton, he's been there for the party since God knows when, and it's been quite a long time. So I believe it's going to be a very stiff battle. But I'm looking at those two, especially Dr. Van West Charles and Mr. Aubrey Norton. More so, I believe I'll put some bets on Aubrey Norton.
Leyland?
Well, this PNC election is a comedy circus. all three of these candidates are past their mental prime. Van West Charles is close to 70, as well as Mr. Norton. Or I think Van West might be over 70. The point is, none of these men are fit to lead a party that will represent about 48% of Guyana's population, given the ethnic divide and racial voting that we saw and we have been seeing since independence. So, who would I choose? Yeah, that's between a rock and a hard place, the devil and the deep blue sea. I have no respect for none of these gentlemen, politically speaking. Van West Charles disappeared from Guyana after the PNC lost the election, and then he reappeared. Mr. Harmon is a military man in the army. Mr. Harmon has a lot of dealings with army and army intelligence. I would not trust a person like that. Mr. Norton was buddy-buddy with Mr. Hoyt, and Mr. Hoyt never gave him a high position. Why would he be given a high position now? These men are close to 70 years and plus. I don't see the PNC selecting these men and hoping that they will win an election. The PNC is basically driving a nail in their own coffin. It's like selecting Alibaba and the 40 thieves.
Mike Singh?
Thank you. Joseph Harmon is in a league of his own. The actions and behavior of him and David Granger are unparalleled. I'm disappointed that they have not been sent to the middle of Afghanistan and thrown into a bottomless pit. They've brought shame and disgrace for everything my late friend Desmond Hoyt stood for. It's really sad. It's a tragedy. It's almost like a Greek tragedy or perhaps a Shakespearean tragedy that the PNC has become a shadow of its former self because they allowed a complete gangster and an idiot to combine together to run their affairs. They won in 2015. The PPP did the honorable thing and gave in and said, we accept the defeat. In fact, I actually spoke with President Jack Dio a few days after they got into power, and he said, Mike, I know you. I think someone like you can have a role to play in this country, and I'm putting together a think tank. You're welcome to be part of it. You don't have to join the PPP. Those were the words of President Jack Dio to me, and I felt that was very magnanimous of him and presidential. Jack Dio, I can call him at any point. You know, he responds. I think the PPP knows me. I'm a Hoyt guy. I don't ever wish to be in the same room with Joe Harmon, Roysdale Ford, Amna Ali, David Granger. These are the worst types of persons. I prefer the Taliban over them, to be quite honest. They attempted to undermine the democratic process. And for those 6 months, I saw how many people, you know, stood in rain and sun, and, you know, it became a comedy central with the man with the bed sheet, the projector. It was like Guyanese were living through the Twilight Zone. So, you know, I wouldn't even think. I mean, if the PNC elect someone like Joe Harmon, they're self-destructing. I don't think they can win a domino match under the current dispensation. And no one would have loved Desmond Hoyt more than myself, but he was a gentleman. I know Aubrey Norton for many years. He knows me. I'm respectful. I know Dr. Van West Charles. I think of the three candidates, despite Van West's problems with the fuel thing, He's a decent man because Van West Charles listens to people. He is not prone to irrational display of temper. He's not violent. In fact, he said to me, Mike, one of the first things I will do if I'm elected leader of the PNC is to recognize the government and sit down and work with them. Because to be an opposition leader, it's a responsible position. And the PNC needs to elect someone that will put the national interest first and not seek to derail good dialogue and good relations with the government, because we're at an important crossroad, Dr. Bisram, of our development. And if we don't have national unity and dialogue and civic engagement, our enemies are going to exploit us. So we need a Guyana where we can have truth, healing, and national healing and reconciliation. You know, I've always said this is the Guyana I would like to see. And that can only come about with mature political leadership. We need all hands on deck. This is not a PNC or a PPP or a APNU or a WPA Guyana. We need to have a one Guyana. And President Ali, from his first day, I remember saying that he was open to dialogue and he wanted to have all Guyanese to be inclusive. Irfan Ali is on record for saying that. But you can't have this unless both hands are willing to clap. One hand cannot clap. Look at Rwanda. Do we want Guyana to become Rwanda? There will be no winners, only weepers. And many things can only be done when you have genuine national healing, reconciliation, and unity. You need a Mandela or an Obama or someone like that to emerge on the stage that can bring people together. I'm a big believer.
And we don't have one of those in the PNC or in Guyana.
Well, I'm a big believer in the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, and I believe it's never too late to turn a new leaf. We must find the courage and the conviction to let go of the past, to come together for the common good of the country, and to forgive. We can't go back to the 60s and Wisma. We have to let that go. Gandhiji said, you know, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew. In the riots of Calcutta in 46, there was an incident of a Hindu man who had butchered a Muslim family. And he came to Gandhi and he said, here is bread, here is roti. And it's in the movie, if I recall, it was the Indian actor Om Puri playing that role. And he said to Gandhi, I killed an entire Muslim family. What should I do? Gandhiji said, you must adopt a Muslim boy, even though you're a Hindu, and you must raise him as a Muslim. We cannot, Martin Luther King, Mandela, Gandhi, if they have found the power to forgive and let go and forgive their enemies. Mandela spent 28 years in Robben Island after the Livonia trial in Johannesburg. And you know, the guard who took care of Mandela, when Mandela became president, he read of the death of the guard's son, and Mandela went himself to the funeral of the son of the guard. When he got into office, his black supporters said, Madiba, you must fire all these white people, all these Afrikaners. Mandela said, no, this is not the South Africa we want. They're welcome to stay here. All I ask is for their commitment and their loyalty, and they can be part of this process of reconciliation and rebuilding and trust. So in Guyana, the PNC and the PPP need to move, my brothers and sisters, to the center.
Okay.
If you don't have that, we cannot move forward as a people. And then the Venezuelans will happily take their Sequibo, and Exxon will take the oil, and we will all be singing Kumbaya with our necks deep in poverty.
Okay, Mike, thanks for that. Listen, it was Forbes Burnham who said the people who vote don't really matter. It is the people who count the votes.
I bet they differs bad.
And also, in this particular election, we don't know who's in charge of the machinery. And I believe whoever is in charge of the machinery will decide the winner of the election. It's always been that way in the PNC, and I think it will be any different this time around. Although some people feel that this election would be free and fair. Before we close up, I'll just get some final viewpoints, a minute each. First, let's begin with Leyland.
Well, sir, for our viewers, let me remind everyone that Richard Van West Charles is a former son-in-law of the dictator and tyrant Forbes Burnham. Mr. Charles has been involved in a lot of alleged fuel racketing, under invoicing fuel and smuggling fuel into Guyana. Mr. Charles, or Dr. Charles, was the Minister of Water, the head of the Guyana Water Incorporated. When he left with close to $2 billion in debt. He had contracted overseas suppliers of dubious standing to sell to the water company products that were shoddy and tainted and not even and overpriced. To me, the selection of Messrs. Norton, Harmon, and Mr. Van West Charles is selecting one of the Three Stooges, Larry, Curly, and Moe. I see no future for the PNC. They're a very devious set of people. Most of them, they're a very devious set of people. They just prey on the insecurity of the other half of the population, and most PNC people are bullies. They have no respect for law unless the law suits them. They could bend the law at their own will. And the PNC, the reality of the PNC is this. In post-colonial British rule, the three pillars of power in a British system is the judiciary, the military, and the public service. Judiciary, military, and public service, all three are controlled in Guyana today by the PNC. So there you have it. The PNC dominates the public service, and the public service is one efficient, rotten body. You have to go 5 times to get a simple document. Try getting a birth certificate, a passport, or a death certificate. That's why there's so much traffic on the road. People have to go 5 times at an average to uplift one simple document. Whereas this document can simply be mailed to you if you identify yourself, pay the right fee, with a simple phone call. Guyana's public service is backward. We are worse than third world, man. We are like the Congo. You know, we like Mike said, we're like Rwanda and Burundi. We are so steeped in the Jurassic era. It's hard to see the public service becoming a professional entity in the near future.
Here, Vishnu, we're gonna talk about the Huawei gift.
You may, because we are going to close up now. Just take a minute and sum it up.
Well, the recent gift of 1,000 Huawei devices to the government of Guyana is a Trojan horse, because Huawei is part and parcel of state security of China. No Huawei products are allowed into the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and any other NATO member states. The daughter of the chairman of Huawei was involved in the circumvention of United States export controls by exporting technology to Iran, violating both the United States and UN sanctions on the trading of specific goods and services to Iran. For instance, the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, has listed Huawei, ZTE, Datang, Dahua, which are all companies active in Guyana, They've been barred, they've been banned, they have been listed on in the United States Treasury Department and the Commerce Department blacklist. And those companies are operating freely in Guyana. In fact, the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control has a sanctions program, and that administers and enforces economic and trade sanctions based on U.S. foreign policy and national security concerns against targeted foreign countries and regimes, terrorists, international narcotics traffickers, and even those involved in WMD and all the threats to the national security, foreign policy, or economy of the U.S. Any institution or person in Guyana trading, aiding, or abetting Chinese state actors and moving money through the United States financial system will be in violation of the United States Patriot Act. And I need not tell you, you can end up with Guantanamo or some black hole if need be. That's a serious business. It's a Trojan horse for Guyana. The National Data Management Authority, which manages the government of Guyana's intranet, the entire backbone is built, developed, and controlled and monitored by Huawei. So every piece of email the government of Guyana, the president, the vice president, the prime minister, the head of the military are sending to each other, the Chinese are getting a field day because they're tapping into the network since they manage it and they're able to read everything. All these Huawei devices in Guyana, including modems and modems and any kind of switches that are being used by any of the service providers are embedded with malware, which allows Chinese state security free and open access to get into that device and look at everything that's happening. This started with the previous regime. It's both the PNC and the PPP are culpable for throwing caution to the wind.
So Mike, basically you're saying that Guyana has to be careful in its relationship with China, otherwise it'll run into
Well, it's a sitting duck today.
Yeah.
Because the National Data Management Authority and a certain privately owned telecommunications network in Guyana are fronts for Huawei and Chinese state intelligence.
Great.
All of the cameras around Georgetown and elsewhere that were installed by Huawei, it's taking back images real time through the cloud to Huawei servers and Chinese state operatives.
So one has to be careful in Guyana that our security could be compromised. Yeah.
It is compromised. You're a sitting duck.
The
only way around this, Vishnu, is for the government of Guyana to report all of that compromised Chinese junk, get it out of the country, and contract a reputable U.S. company like Cisco, or there are many, or Mavenir, or even through Guyana Technologies Group, which is a reputable company to help the government of Guyana start from scratch in building a resilient and non-hackable system, a remote, private VPN for voice and data.
Let's hear from Dr. Josh Kanhai.
Oh, let me just correct one thing. You said...
are we running out of time, Mike?
No, but it's important I correct this. I do not work for the FBI. You said that twice. I'm a member of InfraGard, which I'm a constituent member of InfraGard, which is part of the FBI, private sector collaboration, but I do not work for the FBI. But
thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on board. Dr. Kanhai, any word from you before we close? Okay, and Leyland, you want to close up?
Yeah, well, I wish to wish all Guyanese a very happy Christmas. Although it's a month early, but I always plan ahead, way ahead of time. And I want all Guyanese people to just think. God give you a brain to think. Think how people could become self-anointed in the field of oil without having any training in oil. Self-anointed exports in gas, and they don't have any training in gas. Self-anointed in building a sugar factory that's never functioned. They are They're engineers when they build the Demerara Harbor Bridge. The Barbies Bridge, sorry, my mistake. The Barbies Bridge, which questionable expenditures. They're architects in building a Marriott hotel where we still to receive a proper audit as to the cost overruns of over 20 million US dollars. These people are engineers in building a hydro project that Guyanese taxpayers lost over 100 million US dollars. These people are self-anointed experts in healthcare to institute the building of a specialty hospital by giving Surrendra Contracting Company over 200 million Guyana dollars, and Surrendra disappeared with the money. This is showing you that prior to this, we had the glass factory that was a disaster. We had a house that used to house drugs, which was a simple house, it's not a storage bond. We had a stadium that cost $1.5 billion and is worthless today. Our leaders have abused, misused, and overused taxpayers' money. And Guyanese taxpayers, it is time you wake up and question how your leaders spend this money. Because the Chinese are building an airport and it's 5 years past due. And it costs another 20 million US dollars to build. So think that the Chinese started out with a toehold in Guyana. They now have a foothold.
Oh my
Let's hope the
goodness.
Chinese don't get a stranglehold in Guyana.
Oh yes, they're strangling you. Guyana is becoming a vassal state of China. And it's very sad because Guyana needs to choose if it's on the side of the United States or it's going to become just a surrogate. I'm worried that the Chinese, as they get more and more deeper into Guyana, are going to build a secret military base in the Amazon with the express purpose of launching missiles into the United States. This is the United States backyard. The United States has the Monroe Doctrine, and I support full U.S. military force anywhere in Latin America and the Caribbean where our strategic national interests are threatened. If this means a full-scale invasion of any other CARICOM country since Grenada, let it be. We are not going to be a sitting duck and allow the Chinese to come from halfway around the world. Secondly, China is a major supplier of arms and missiles and drones to Venezuela, which covets 3/4 of Guyana. Yet the government of Guyana marches blindly into all these nefarious deals with the Chinese state. This so-called Belt and Road Initiative is a belt and rope initiative. Australia got nuclear submarines. I'll tell you, it's not if, but when the United States and its Quad allies in Asia fight China. China is going to be left behind. Many of their companies that are there are shifting to India. It's not a democracy. And Guyana has to stop sitting on the fence and drinking from both sides of the cup. It has to decide if it's a US ally or it's a Chinese surrogate state. I want to ask you before I leave, when was the last time any of you gentlemen recall growing up or even now getting a Christmas barrel from Beijing?
Well, I haven't had any at all, not even in the US or in Guyana. But
no, but I mean, you know of any Guyanese getting Christmas barrels from Beijing?
So. I don't think so.
Without the US, Guyana is zilch. Let's face it.
So let that be the last word. I thank you very much for being on tonight, taking your precious time away from this holiday weekend. Again, let me wish everyone a very, very happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Enjoy your feast or however you celebrate it, whether it is by charity or other activities. Thank you again. Good night. You have been watching Globespan 24/7, owned and operated by Nohar Singh with Devin Bissoon as techie operator. And I'm Vishnu Bisram, your moderator and host for tonight. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.